Welcome to the K-State Insiders, your Kansas State sports show. Now, let's head into the studio.
Welcome to the Insiders, Fitz and Cole and Gills and the Big B man himself. I'm in the Cats and Dogs studio. Everyone else is in their studios, whether they're fancy or not. Big B's is fancy. Brian's is kind of fancy. Cole's getting there. Cole's got some room, but he's going to get there. He's going to get there. Welcome to the Insiders. We almost didn't do this tonight, and I was talked into it. Actually, I was bullied into it by Ryan Gilbert. I mean, I was just minding my own business, and he started hammering away at me. But we are doing it, and here we are to take your questions about Kansas State sports. A very interesting period of K-State sports as the football team preps for a bowl game and manages the transfer portal as best possible. And meanwhile, on the basketball side, they're winding down 10 days off. And they will play Drake tomorrow night at the T-Mobile Center in Kansas City. Gills and Coles will be there for that game. But let's discuss everything going on in the world of K-State sports. And if you're new here, we need your comments. We need any topics you can throw in there because we will take that. And here's the first really important comment. So happy Big B is here tonight.
Me too.
Yep. The rest of us, we're here too. Christian, we're here too. Guys, let's start with basketball. And Gills, that brings you up first. How important is this game tomorrow night against Drake?
It's important, man. It's important. You go back to the St. John's game as well. That was an important non-conference opportunity for this team, and obviously a really good first half out in Queens, and then the second half things kind of just unraveled. And so these are important games, and we can keep on doing this show after show or game after game, but at some point you've got to kind of flip the switch and win, come out on top in one of these quote unquote big games to get that momentum going, to get that resume with a nice quality win under its belt. Drake is undefeated. It's not going to be the best win in the world if you do get it. The metrics don't seem to love the Bulldogs. K-State's favored by 1.5 last I looked, but nonetheless, it's still a real quality team. Haven't lost a game yet. Couple quality wins over Vanderbilt, FAU, Miami. Defense gives up the second fewest points in the nation. So it'll be interesting. Fun game for K-State fans. I know there'll be a lot of purple in T-Mobile Center, but my overall point here is we can't just say that this is the game for K-State to kind of turn things around. At some point, it's going to have to truly happen, and K-State needs to come out on top.
Agreed. Cole, when this game was announced as the Kansas City game, there was some hemming and hawing amongst the Kansas City folk that this wasn't a very good game. And, there's some things that go into that. First of all, the 20-game conference schedule has really lightened the schedule in terms of non-conference games, at least for K-State it has. And now this game has turned out to be a pretty good one and a really important one for K-State, as the Bulldogs have a new coach. They're on a first-year coach with Ben McCollum coming up from Northwest Missouri State. He's brought in players, and he's having success. This is important on many levels for K-State and Jerome Tang.
It is, and it's interesting you bring up the Kansas City idea, Fitz. I was just looking at Drake's roster, and I had talked to some people, about this Drake team. And guys, they have 7 guys on their team who are from either Kansas City, Missouri, or the Kansas City area, or I guess I should say 6, and then from Nixa, Missouri. So there is essentially incredible local ties with this Drake Bulldogs team and Kansas City. You throw into the fact you brought up Ben McColl, the former national championship winning coach at Northwest Missouri State, brings 4 of his guys, and this Drake team is going to be incredibly fired up to play this game. And so somebody asked Jerome Tang at the press conference on Monday, how do you not overlook them? And I thought his answer was actually really good. He said, first of all, we're not good enough to overlook anybody. Second of all, this team is really good. And so I think this Drake team has the full attention of K-State. Guys, I almost think for K-State, it's a better thing that they're playing this game in Kansas City instead of Manhattan. Because if you're playing this game on a Tuesday night during winter break against a really good Drake team in Manhattan, let's call it how it is. The crowd wouldn't be as good as it's going to be tomorrow night. And so I actually think this works out perfect for K-State. It's actually good that Drake is having the season they're having because it forces the Wildcats, not that they'd overlook anybody, but you look at that Drake team, and when you see a 0 in the loss column, you know what? You're going to have to focus a little bit harder.
Well, I would agree with that. Drake on Tuesday, Wichita State down at Coke on Saturday. The last 2 non-conference games, Big B, and I've been avoiding saying it, but the more I sit here and look at where the Wildcats are, they opened Big 12 play on December 30th with Cincinnati inside Bramlage. They got to win these games. They really need to win these games to set a tone. You can't still be limping into Big 12 play with your level of play.
No, I mean, I'm going to put it a little bit more forceful. This year must-win basketball games. They got to win.
Yeah.
Drake is good, by the way. They have a really good basketball team. They're going to be in the NCAA tournament. Now, some of the metrics as far as the defense, I mean, look, some of the teams that they've played may not be able to score 60 points against us right here. Having said all of that, Drake is really good. So maybe K-State fans are underestimating it. I mean, because they wanted somebody else in there. But if K-State comes and plays how they've played lately, they're going to lose. That's the thing. They have to play better. And this is a must-win basketball game. I don't know what's really going on, guys. And maybe you can answer this question better. I've watched them. I see what's going on. I'll just be quite frank. I just don't know that the right guys are playing the right number of minutes as of right now. I can say that. I think there's other guys that need to be getting more minutes than what they're actually getting. Now, whatever's going on or whatever happened, it's kind of a reset point. I think that we're kind of where we're at. We can reset this thing and get it started going in the right direction. But kind of what Gil said, we have to do it. We can't just continue to say it. At some point, you got to do it. So this would be those times because, look, you're looking at some of those losses. LSU, I don't think is going to be a very good team this year. I think Liberty is probably a little better than what we think, but I don't think they're great. And St. John's will be middle of the pack in the Big East, struggling to get a tourney bid if they are even that. They're not a great basketball team. They do have a great coach, and I think that was part of the thing that got us the last time we were out. Pitino is, if not the best, there's not 4 better coaches at in-game halftime adjustments than Rick Pitino. I don't care if he's 72. I don't care if he's 202. The man knows how to coach basketball and make adjustments. So K-State's got to be better.
It may not be that effective at 202, Big B. Believe me, I feel 202, and it's kind of a hard position to be in. Gills, they've been off forever. I mean, you went to New York. You've been back for like 2 months. And that game will be, 10 days prior to the Kansas City game, the St. John's game. Is it possible that St. John's game was a slap upside the head and a reminder that they've got a lot of work to do? And they had really a well-placed stretch of no games here to try to work on that in practice.
Yeah, but glass half full. Fitz, sure. Yeah, absolutely. You can go and kind of release the demons, so to speak, against Drake and just go out and play and have the rest and all of that. But on the flip side, 10 days off is a long time. And so I think watching for some potential rust from Kansas State is valid, so it's everything that did happen from that St. John's game to now with the chore stuff and other rumblings around the program. There's 2 ways it can go. It can serve it as a distraction for this team, Fitz, or it can kind of unite them together. And I think it's kind of apples and oranges with Naquan Tomlin and a chore. But you go back to last year in K-State after Naquan Tomlin was released from the team or dismissed, whatever. K-State had its best game of the year with Cam Carter going off against LSU. So we'll see how there's a lot of storylines kind of with this game. Cole mentioned the KC guys for Drake and undefeated. K-State's been off 10 days. You've got a first game now without, I wouldn't say a star player, but without a player. And that's obviously going to open the door. I think most people would think Buddy Rich is going to see that, but Taj Manning and Moby Ike Garuka were two guys that Tang mentioned in his press conference on Monday as guys who might get opportunities as well. So, and it goes without saying that, Gasson and Hawkins, kind of those bigs in the rotation regularly already, are going to maybe be tasked with just a little bit more now that Achor is not there. So a lot of storylines, kind of heading into this game, and Fitz, like, he's heated up, not playing in 10 days. I mean, guys, it's a long time when you think about it kind of in sports terms.
Cole, Achor was Achor, as I like to say, was a significant recruit. He brought great numbers from Samford. I was looking forward to him, and I'm going to side with both sides on this. I think he's right. I don't think he ever really fit into what they're attempting to do. I don't think he understood what his role was. It didn't feel well defined to him. And I think the coaches didn't quite know what to do with him, especially with David Gasson playing at the level he is. Mm-hmm. I think this is one more distraction that they don't have to deal with. And maybe they lost some talent, but they might have gained a little more focus.
Yeah, very rarely in instances like this does it work out for both parties. And, I thought it was interesting, Tang's comments today. He said, we wish him all the best. And that's pretty much all that he said. I wasn't expecting him really to talk much more about it. I mean, they issued a little press release and that was that. But he brought up I think maybe Kellis asked a question about Naquan Tomlin. And I just think those two situations are completely different, because this staff, not that they didn't appreciate Achor for his efforts at Kansas State, but they love Naquan Tomlin. And I mean, up until the very end of the season, they were supporting Naquan Tomlin at, graduation. They were supporting him at graduation in December, right after his dismissal. So they were supporting him throughout his time at Memphis. And so this staff still loves Naquan Tomlin. I don't think that there was that. I know there wasn't that deep connection with Achor and Naquan. And so I would venture out to say that it would be kind of the same thing with the players. And, that's not to say anything negative about Achor, but sometimes, we've all had that coworker who was new and then they didn't last very long and you thought about it for a little bit, but then it was like that they were never there in the first place. And not that this will be a non-story in February, but if this team turns it around and they're, I think at best they're right now probably their ceiling is a bubble team. If they're a bubble team in February and we're talking about they got to win this many games to get into the NCAA tournament, I don't think anybody's going to look back and say, oh, if they had Achor, that would have put him over the hump. So it's not a knock on him, but I think that you're right, Fitz. Sometimes you can have addition by subtraction. And if everybody's not all pulling their weight at the same time, then usually the boat tips over. Well, sometimes it's just better to dump that person out of the raft so the whole boat doesn't tip over.
I love your metaphors, man. They're just the best. It made almost no sense, and yet it did make sense.
Thank you.
Big B, let me offer my reminder here to our viewers and listeners that you did play basketball, Division I basketball. Not for long, but you got that scholarship. So here's my observation about this team, and I really want to hear what you think of it. The first half of that St. John's game, Brendan Housen was just lighting it up, and the whole team became focused on getting him the ball. I see some comments about Hawkins over here, and we'll get to Coleman Hawkins in a little bit. But even though he wasn't scoring, I thought he was brilliant in the first half because he kept feeding the ball to Housen. Just you got that hot hand, get him the ball. And that honestly is something I've seen K-State not do in the past. That dude's hot. Why are you taking the shot? They did a great job of that. But when St. John's took him away or he cooled down at halftime, however it happened, they didn't have a purpose on the offensive end. They didn't know what they were trying to do on each specific possession because it was easy before. Get the ball to Housen, and if that doesn't work, we can do something off of that. But now the second half, they just went down there and went, what do we do?
Yeah.
Let's have an identity on offense.
Yeah, I mean, part of it, like I mentioned before, Rick Pitino, his in-game adjustments just said, okay, we're turning this water spigot off. You're going to have to do something else. We're not going to let this kid beat us. And he didn't. And part of that is you got to say, okay, Coach Tang, now what? There's has to be more options than just continuously feeding a guy that's got a hot hand. Eventually, somebody's going to make an adjustment. Eventually, sometimes he's going to miss. What are you going to do? You got to have a counterpunch. It's kind of like a boxer. Okay, if a guy's killing you with the jab and you make an adjustment to the jab, if that's all he's got is the jab, well, then you're going to end up winning that fight, because if he can't punch you anymore, then you can punch him. And it doesn't seem like K-State can punch back right now. I've said this before. I'm going to say it again. K-State's best players have to start playing like their best players. You can pick whoever you want to pick out of that. I don't need to go into names, but for K-State to be as good as they're going to be, the best players have to start being the best players. Period. End of story. You can't be a role player. You can't fade into when somebody else is hot. Okay, great. I'm going to keep giving them the ball, but I'm not going to do anything. That's not what the best players do, man. They don't do that. They say, okay, great, you're getting yours, but when you're not, I'm going to go get mine too. And does K-State have that guy? I think. But we're gonna find out here in these next 3 games, because these next 3 games are going to be really good tests to see what K-State can really do. And Drake, starting with Drake, Wichita State, Cincinnati. Cincinnati, I know some people think that they're not as good as their ranking. Cincinnati's a good basketball team, people. Don't kid yourself. They're good. But at some point, that we got to have some X's and O's out there to be able to draw some stuff up to get easy baskets. And I don't think there's enough of that going on. I hate to be critical of what coach is doing, but I'm going to be critical of what coach is doing. There got to be some X's and O's out there. If we're struggling, you got to be able to draw something up to get a layup, get you an open 5-footer, get open in the paint. Something has to give at this point. And right now, that's just not happening. And for K-State to be good, you got to figure out some X's and O's to get stuff, because you're not just going to make all your 3-point shots. That's just not going to happen. Get something going to the rim, going downhill, draw, dish, something. It's just not enough is like that is happening right now, guys.
I agree on all counts. Gills, you got something?
I was just going to jump in with the offense. And so Tang on Monday, he mentioned there were kind of 3 things during this 10-day stretch that they wanted to work on, or what they emphasized. And that was transition defense, rebounding, and buy-in. And a lot of people on social media were upset that offense wasn't mentioned there, right? And I get it, rightfully so, Big B. I'm not going to, disagree with anything you just said, but this is still a team that's averaging like 80 points a game offensively. I know the Pine Bluff win with 120 points maybe skews that a little bit, but I don't think a lack of offense, maybe in that second half against St. John's, sure, you can say that, but there's been, like Tang said, buy-in issues. Rebounding has been a big issue. The effort at times, the turnovers have kind of been not only this season, but last season as well. So I'm not going to dismiss the offense being an issue. I think that can get better. And I think that between Uric Malagi and Rodney Perry and the whole staff, like, they probably embraced that challenge of getting better schematically and drawing up more plays to get points. But is offensive struggles just a scheme? Is that at the top of the list? That's been something that I've seen a lot on social media, and I just can't really buy into that. I think that this team has a number of issues, and what Tang listed on Monday, I think is equally, if not more important than the offensive struggles K-State's having.
And can I, if it's, I want to touch on that too, guys. Like, so you say that again, Gilbert. It was rebounding, transition defense, and buy-in, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Well, I think the first 2 are a reflection of the last one. I mean, like that's all that is, right? Like, true. It doesn't take a super skilled basketball player to get your behind back on defense. It doesn't take a super skilled basketball player to go up and grab a rebound. That literally it's buy-in. It's trying to do everything that the coaches are preaching over and over and over again. To me, what that sounds like, guys, is that they have confidence that on the offensive end, they have skilled enough players. And to touch on what you're talking about, Big B, they can only fix so many things at one time. And so it's pretty apparent to me, they feel like if they can get these 2 things better, then they'll get better on offense throughout the season, which, you know what? I don't necessarily disagree with that, because you have to at least try and get these guys to do what they want to do. Because right now, this doesn't look like a Jerome Tang team. Like, you go back to last year's team and even the team before that, and the issues that they're having now, they had rebounding issues, but it wasn't because they didn't try. It wasn't because there wasn't buy-in. They had rebound issues because David Gasson was playing the center. David Gasson was trying to guard Oscar Tshiebwe in a round of 32 game, right? So, I mean, I understand what he's saying, and I truly get it. We have people in the comments asking, what does buy-in mean? To me, that's exactly what it sounds like. I don't think these guys are embracing the grittiness, the grinding mentality that Jerome Tang's teams have had. Go back to his time at Baylor. Those guys were scrappy as hell. And K-State right now is not scrappy. And it really feels like that's, to me, what I feel like when he talks about buy-in. That's what he wants.
Well, I think a little bit of that too, and I agree with everything that you said, Cole, is when he's talking about buy-in, somebody asking what that means. Part of it is, I believe some of the K-State players believe they're better than what they actually are. And what happened at St. John should have kicked him in the teeth to let him know you're not quite as good as what you think you are. So you need to buy into what we're talking about and what we're trying to get accomplished, because I let you do it your way and look what happened. So maybe you should buy in a little bit and do what we're trying to get you to do. We're not just out here talking just to talk. We're not just out here coaching just to coach. We're telling you the things that are going to help you be successful as a team. And this is it, and I think that's what it all has to, when he's talking about buy-in, I think that's 100% versus saying that his team isn't listening or his team is trying to do it his way. That's a coach speak, buy-in. And that's what you say when you're trying to get your guys to understand you're not as good as what you think you are. You need to learn to do it our way. And when you don't do it our way against decent competition, you get beat. Case in point at St. John's. So I think that's part of it. And I love what he said.
Me too.
I still believe that the best players have to play better. I mean, I'm never going to buy that your best players can just be role players. Not if you're going to be good. If you're going to be good, then your best players have to be the best players. But I 100% agree. I agree with what you said and you, Gills. And what he's talking about with buy-in is like, look, do it our way. The way that you guys are trying to get it done and doing it, when you do it your way, it doesn't work when we play good competition. You have to do it like this. We know what we're talking about. I applaud him for saying it because, again, it's coach speak, but you have to know what he's talking about to get it. So if anybody doesn't understand, that's what he's saying. Do it our way. Your way doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Very true. Next topic is the Chora departure set off some alarm bells with some that there's minutes to be had, and some people are determined that it shouldn't be Coleman Hawkins getting more minutes. I don't know if that's possible. He pretty much just comes out of the game to rest and then goes back out. But I'm not saying he's not bought in. I'm not. And it's in his nature to kind of be casual appearing. Doesn't mean he is casual. Keontae Johnson looked very casual. Mitch Richmond looked very casual. At times, Michael Beasley looked very casual because the game was easy for them. But the game isn't easy for Coleman Hawkins. It's not as easy as he thinks it is.
No.
I think he is a wildly gifted and talented player who isn't focused on being a great player. He wants to be a great player, but I don't see him having the buy-in with the type of energy level you need to compete in the Big 12 and for him to be regarded as one of the top players in the conference, if not the nation. Fans aren't regarding him as the top player on this team. And in reality, he should be the top player on this team. We've seen one performance that was closer to what we thought, maybe better than what we thought, but he absolutely poured it on in that final game in the Virgin Islands. And since then, well, he went back to being casual. Although I will say in the first half of St. John's, I thought he did a great job of making things happen for others. And that's a great role for someone, but not for your most talented player. Your most talented player needs to be finding a way to create for themselves, not just take shots, good shots. and play off your teammates to create shots for them and then in turn for you. And I don't see that from him. I need more from Coleman Hawkins. It was great to see him have an incredible game, but he went right back to planking shots, taking some questionable shots. Young man, get to the rim, dunk the hell out of the ball, feel good about it, and then maybe your shots will follow. I just think if this team wants to be good, wants to be better than it is, Coleman Hawkins has to lead the way. He has to start showing the energy and effort it takes to win in the Big 12 because, young man, look, the Big 10 might be really good, and they might have a lot of players that can bang, but it's more of a grind you down half-court game. The Big 12 wants to run. The Big 12 wants to get after you, and there's going to be great depth in the quality of teams you face. You got to be 100% every game. And if you don't have your best player playing at high levels, you're not going to be as good as you want.
I don't want to say it's – go ahead, Big B. You got it, man. You got it.
Oh, well, I was just basically going to say, with Coleman Hawkins, last year at Illinois, he had a lottery pick on his team.
Yeah.
Games become easier and things become a lot easier for you when you have a lottery pick on your team, and he doesn't have that at K-State. Not what he's supposed to be the lottery pick, if that's in the cards. So yeah, games are easier when you have a guy that is as talented as Shannon was last year at Illinois. Well, you don't have that, and things become different when the spotlight's on you. Well, I think he's talented enough to take the mantle, but he's, like I mentioned, got to take the mantle. It's time for you to start playing the way that you need to be playing. Now, it's not all on him either, though, guys. Coach has got to help him. Coach has got to draw up some stuff to get him some easy looks, to get him his confidence going, because maybe it's a confidence thing. He's missed a bunch of shots that he thought he was going to make early on in the season, and it hasn't gone the way that he wants it to go. Okay, here's the thing, Coleman. We're going to set some stuff up for you, but you know what? We need you to come with the maximum effort to be able to get these things going. I go and get your confidence level back, because there's no doubt that he's talented, but he needs to rev up the engine, but he also needs the coaches to help. You've got to get when your best player is struggling, or your perceived best player is struggling, you got to do something to get them going, to get their confidence going. That's part of coaching.
To the first part of that, Big B, Marquise Noel's not who he was without Keontae Johnson. Keontae Johnson's not who he was without Marquise Noel. So
exactly,
it's not all on Coleman Hawkins. And I know Brendan Hasen's been a sharpshooter, and Doug McDaniel's shown a lot of flash as a point guard, but finding that consistently from guys. And I've said this on, I think, the last week's podcast, that Tang loves the fact that the media wants to interview different guys every night, because that means his team has so many different scores, and that's great. But consistently, you need some guys to step up. And in my opinion, Brendan Hasen was on fire in the first half. That's not a hot take at all. But in my opinion, what happened in the second half was Rick Pitino took him out of the game. K-State didn't have anybody else to step up, and that's kind of why things unraveled in Queens the way they did. Back to Hawkins, though, I don't want to say it's frustrating, but it's a little frustrating when you see his ceiling and how good he can be. That game against Longwood in the Virgin Islands, I was there firsthand. Hawkins played great. And in Tang's eyes, though, I remember asking Tang after the game, in Tang's eyes, Hawkins played good all tournament. So scoring is, and I've said this time and again, doesn't necessarily have to be the measuring stick for anybody, but especially a guy like Coleman Hawkins. In that first half against St. John's, he had a couple of dimes. I remember one right in front of me to Brendan Hasen. It was just perfect pass. And so, I never want to attack a guy's effort or character. And I know that's something Jerome Tang mentioned on his Coleman Hawkins' podcast, ironically, the Field of 68. I forget what the show's called, but he'll listen to anybody's text message that comes in. But if he just starts attacking someone's character, he just blocks them. And so I don't want to say Coleman Hawkins hasn't been giving it his all, because if he's not, I don't want to talk about a chore anymore, but if you're not seeing eye to eye with the staff, the leash can only go so long. So Hawkins, just because he's not scoring doesn't mean he's not trying. And also, I think another thing with Hawkins, I noticed this too in the St. John's game, and other games as well, is that sometimes he's just trying too hard. He's forcing things. He's putting up maybe not the best shot. Now, is he just not focused? Is he trying to go out and do too much? Is it, like Big B mentioned, the scheme, is the offense not as good as it maybe needs to be? Who knows where the truth is? But Coleman Hawkins, I think, needs to be getting better looks and taking better shots, and the productivity kind of needs to increase there. But with the ball in his hands, he can get his teammates set up. He can do a lot of good things. When it comes to scoring, effort could be here or there. That's whatever. Coleman Hawkins in one-on-one situations, I would strongly think that Coleman Hawkins would agree with me saying this. Coleman Hawkins needs to get better just in those one-on-one situations. Either that's up at the top of the key and you're trying to blow by a smaller guard, or you got somebody bigger than you up near the rim. Use kind of that quickness that you have to move around them and post up and score 2 points. In those situations, that's where Hawkins really, in my eyes, can get better and take smarter looks, get better looks, and in turn, your productivity is going to increase.
Right.
I look
Let
at
me
this.
jump in just real quick, and I'll just finish this. Is that you're right on all of that, Gills? And part of it is when I say you gotta help, coaches got to help him, because the guy's shooting 35% from the field. There's no reason a guy his size should be shooting 35% for the field. So when you are talking about getting better looks and maybe he's pressing too much, great, get to the rim. He's a smart enough basketball player to understand that's how basketball works. Any shooter will tell you, if I'm struggling, I need to see the ball go through the basket. Well, when you're his height, the easiest way for that to go through the basket is to get inside and go score or get fouled or do something. It's not to continuously take 12, 15, 18, 22-foot jump shots. I'm sorry. And again, part of that is your coaches helping you. Part of that is you helping yourself. And a part of it is your teammates helping you. They say, hey, man, sometimes you just got to tell them, get your butt in there. We'll give it to you and go to work. It happens.
I look at this two ways, guys. There's two players. I look at this through two players. There's two guys that need to step up. If this K-State team wants to be successful, it's Doug McDaniel and it's Coleman Hawkins. This team goes how those two guys go. If those two guys step up and play like they can, like they have before, this team can make the NCAA tournament. I don't think that's a hot take. I mean, Doug McDaniel is an all-conference talent. Coleman Hawkins is an all-conference talent. There's a difference. They're a talent. That they're not a player. They're not an all-conference player yet. They're an all-conference talent. And I don't know if we were planning on talking about Doug McDaniel, because I'm fascinated by this, guys. I mean, Jerome Tang said on Monday that we have a good relationship. We don't have a great relationship, but we have a good relationship. That's interesting. But if Doug McDaniel takes that next step and he can help Coleman Hawkins, Big B, you talk about the coaching staff. Guys, how about his teammates? I mean, his teammates can help put him in good position. If Doug McDaniel can take that next step, I see flashes from Doug McDaniel that makes me go, that looks like number one. That looks like Marquise Noel. And I'm not comparing Doug McDaniel to Marquise Noel because I think their mindsets are completely different. But he has that kind of talent. And if Coleman Hawkins and Doug McDaniel can get going, then this team can do whatever they want to do, period.
And Cole, what you just said is not a knock at all on David Gasson. This is his third year in a purple jersey. Everybody knows what he's capable of, and he's been very consistent. Brendan Hasen's been a sharpshooter. He's been consistent with that. Yeah. We've seen the ceilings of Hawkins and McDaniel. We've seen the upsides of their game. Going back to what we've been talking about, getting that consistently is key. So I agree wholeheartedly, and that does not mean that other guys aren't important. It just kind of is maybe a compliment to those other guys with how maybe consistent they have been.
I agree. I mean, Cole, you just walked me right into what was going to be the next topic is these two need to learn how to play with each other, because they not only will help each other, they'll make each other better.
Yeah.
If they can start communicating the way Marquise Noel and Keontae Johnson did on the same page, I know what you're doing. Let's do it. Then this team's going to be okay. You've got a sharpshooter. You got a guy that's always going to defend and rebound at his best ability and score. Certainly he scores around the rim with great efficiency. If you add into the lineup a strong defender, which I don't really see right now in this team, that just a shutdown defender, you got the pieces of a really good basketball team. But it starts with having two guys in sync that want to play with each other, play for each other, and make each other better. And these two kids have the ability. They have the basketball sense to do so. I'm not sure they have the desire to do so. I think they're going out there, okay, I need to do this, or the team needs to do that. Those two guys need to be, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to play off each other and get other people involved, but it's you and I, man. I don't know that Keontae and Marquise ever had that conversation, but it needs to be had. We can run this team and make it special, but it starts with us. Someone's got to take that leadership ownership, and I think it's got to be those two guys. I think Doug McDaniel's a wildly talented guy that needs to get out of his own way. Just start doing things the right way on a consistent basis and think of your teammates and team first. Just do that, and everything's going to be okay. It will all follow when you just start playing for others. It does. And I think that's really the speech that needs to be had, and these two need to work it out and get on the same page.
I think Doug McDaniel, I think you mentioned, Fitz, that he needs to do it for his teammates. I mean, you're right, but I would go the other way, because I would assume he has aspirations on playing at the next level. Well, if you've got those kind of aspirations, I'll just say this: you're not talented enough to be doing things the wrong way and still go play at the next level. So, and I'm not saying he's not a talented guy, but he's not going to be more talented to be able to outdo that if you're not doing things the right way. So do it for yourself. Put yourself in a position, a better position, to be playing at the next level by just doing everything the right way, and then let your talent take over. Because like you mentioned, Cole, they're all conference talents, but not necessarily all conference players yet. Well, we can get there. We can do that. But I'm going to still, I go back. It's just, look, you mentioned it, Gills. It's not a knock on David Gasson, but I'll say this: if David Gasson is our second best player on this team, then K-State's going to be in trouble. Yeah. I mean, that's not a knock on David Gasson, because I think he's talented, but we know what he brings to the table. Coleman Hawkins has to be better. He has to be playing better than him. I'll go that far. He has to be playing better than him for K-State to go to where they're trying to go. Doug McDougal has to be the main guy on the team. Now, I agree.
Nobody else hear that?
What's that?
Doug McDougal.
Oh, I apologize. I apologize.
Mike McDougal.
Didn't hear it. It didn't register.
Mike McDougal is a former Royals pitcher. I don't think he has a brother named Doug.
Has to be playing at a better pace. And I don't know. I mean, does he need to be playing 30, 35, 36 minutes a game? Maybe. But is that going to be capable? Do they trust him to do that? I mean, especially if coach is saying, yeah, we got a good relationship, we don't have a great relationship. Well, there's something going on there. I mean, otherwise, there's no coach that's going to come out and tell you that, unless there's a little bit of something going on. So I don't know, but we got to get some step up from those two. And like you said, Fitz, they can make each other better. They just need to, maybe they haven't had that conversation, but they got to have it to get to where they're trying to go.
Agreed.
You guys remember Vontae David? Remember his Hard Knocks scene? Fitz and Cole, Big B and Cole, you guys are probably know what I'm talking about. It was when they traded him, and it was like the behind the scenes, and the GM was telling him, like, you're always up and down. We just need you steady here, and that's why we're getting rid of it. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but that's kind of where Doug McDaniel, like everybody kind of, and myself included, wants to fall in love with his highlight plays, the Marquise Noel level type plays. If you can get those every once in a while, great, but eliminating kind of the mistakes, the turnovers, rushing the possessions, Doug McDaniel just needs to find that true consistency. Yes, your upside is really high, but before you can kind of get up and tap that top-notch level of your game, you've got to kind of eliminate the mistakes, so to speak. And we kind of saw that with Marquise Noel throughout his entirety of his K-State career. Certainly in that year with Jerome Tang, it wasn't pretty. Tang's comments about McDaniel were interesting because it was public knowledge. This isn't like a secret that Tang and Noel did not. I don't want to say they didn't get along at first, but they had to kind of feel each other out and learn how to play and coach with each other, right? So maybe that's kind of what Tang might have been hinting at. I don't know, but it is still December. And so if Tang and McDaniel can kind of grow into, you've got to have to play point guard for Jerome Tang. That's a big ask, right? And so, sorry, I'm kind of just going off on a
I hear
now.
what you're saying. Look, I'm not saying Doug McDaniel needs to be Marquise Noel. He needs to find his own identity. He's not a natural point guard like Marquise was. So the fancy passes and all of that is a skill that takes a lot of years of practice. Just go do the basic thing, the right thing, and do it consistently, and your stock value is going to go way up. Because at 5'11", I know you want to be the scorer. I know you want to fill it up. 5'11", you got to be a creator. You do. Marquise is an incredible creator, and he's too small for the league. He just can't find a home in the league, and he can create for anybody. So you're pretty close to being too small, but if you can start learning to create and feed others, make them better, then you're a point guard. Cole, let's shift here real quick. Let's close up the basketball book and turn our attention to football, which right now is all about the transfer portal. This has not been overly productive for Kansas State, but they have had a lot of people come in. And I think as we get further into the portal era, I think players are beginning to understand how to use it better. And we're seeing basically car washes. The players come in, they run through the wash, and they get on a plane and go to another car wash. There's no real bonding of these players, which I think impacts Kansas State's efforts to recruit. Character is important to them, and they don't want to bring in someone that is going to be disruptive, but they also need to bring the talent in. It just hasn't fallen in place yet, but I was texting with someone today that said, don't worry, it's coming. It's going to be okay. They're just running through a lot of people right now.
It reminds me of an elevator pitch. I don't know if you know that saying, guys, but the saying goes with an elevator pitch. We do this sometimes with the kiddos at school. Like, all right, you've got 2.5 minutes to give me everything you got. And that's kind of what recruiting in the transfer portal is. With high school recruiting, they have relationships with these kids when they're sophomores in high school. They might not even know who these kids are when they enter the transfer portal, and they like their tape, so they throw an offer out there. They say, here's our elevator pitch, come to our school. And if it's good enough, then they'll come on a visit, and where they then have to give another elevator pitch because they're there for a day and then they leave. And so it really is so strange, and it's completely different because, I don't think K-State's in a bad position with the transfer portal. And I do wonder, guys, like it's a two-way street. They can bring a kid in, and if they feel like they're not a fit for their program, that kid says they want to commit, K-State very well could say, sorry, we don't have a spot for you. And I look at where their program is right now, and I was posting this on Wabash Station, our message boards, because there's like 3 guys who have entered the transfer portal that I would say maybe weren't going to get part of the 105 roster cut down, maybe, but I still think maybe that number's 2. The 3 guys being Carver Willis, Trey Spivey, and Keegan Johnson. Those are really the only 3 guys you look at and go, they probably could have played on the team next year. And even so, I'm not convinced that there isn't an upgrade over Keegan Johnson. I love the kid. I love everything he's meant to K-State. The statistics weren't there. Trey Spivey, again, I think he has extreme potential. I think he's going to be a really good football player, but just wasn't a fit at K-State at the end of the day. And we talked about Carver Willis, 5th-year senior. You weren't counting on him returning anyway. So I think this K-State football program is in a really good spot right now, and they're looking to supplement their roster. And I know that's not what people want to hear, but that's just the reality of the situation. Are they going to take some big swings? Yeah. You look at some of the guys they're bringing in. Nazai Hunter from Cal. He's a top 60 player in the portal right now. That's a really big swing for K-State. If they can land him, he's visiting Nebraska, going to visit K-State later in the week. Big B, we talked about it on some post-game shows. That's a big swing. That is a big swing for K-State. If you can land him, that'd be great. But they're looking to supplement this roster because they believe that they have the foundation there. They believe they have the culture set that this year was an outlier. And you can believe them, you cannot believe them, but I get the feeling that that's what they believe.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. Totally agree with that.
I think that's what you have to do too. I think the transfer portal is you have to use it in a way to rebuild your roster every single year But when you have the foundational pieces, just say, you know what, K-State's at a level, we're swinging for the fences. We're not just trying to plug and play and get a guy and maybe he'll develop. Because here's my thing. You've done that and it's worked a couple of times, but when it doesn't, it looks awful. And that's where the difference comes in, is when you get a guy from the FCS level and it doesn't work out, you look like you have egg on your face. K-State is a better program than that. I'll just be quite frank. They are. Now, I'm not saying that it can't work, because clearly we know that it can, but with roster cut downs, first of all, I think that's going to change the portal, because I don't think as many guys are going to be jumping in there like they have been willy-nilly. I think there's almost 1,800 guys that are in there at this point. So with these roster cut downs, I think guys are going to be like, you know what? Yeah, I know I didn't play this year, but I think I may just stay put for a while and not just jump in there, because we've seen plenty. I mean, what is it, like 50% of guys that go in never come out? So that's one thing. But K-State's a better program. We can swing for the fences and hit. And when we do, it looks phenomenal. So I think we just have to continue to do that. Nobody wants to hear about guys that are moving out that weren't going to get time. But like you mentioned, Cole, 3 impact players. The one that I was really the most concerned about is Spivey, because I thought Spivey had a real upside. I just didn't think he was used properly. Keegan Johnson couldn't stay on the field.
Yep.
It's hard to trust a guy if he's never healthy. I mean, you don't blame people for being injured, but when you're never available, you're constantly getting hurt. I can't count on you. And I'm sure the coaching staff is like, I can't count on you. Carver Willis, I mean, I'll just let that go. But having said all of that, I think K-State is going to, I mean, the way they're doing it is going to be fine. I think they're going to be fine as far as what they're doing. Swing for the fences. You're going to hit. I think they already did. That kid from Oklahoma can play, that's coming in. So, I mean, I don't know what he's going to play because he's big. I'm not sure he's going to be a corner. I would guess maybe a safety, but we'll see. Who knows? But like I said, I like what K-State's doing. I like this aspect of it, of stepping up a notch in the transfer portal and saying, you know what? We can't afford to constantly just hope a guy is super hungry and he's going to come in and play. No, let's go get some guys that we know that are really good that happen to get in this transfer portal, and we can play them right now.
And to add into that, though, Brian, like, I still like the idea of going to get those guys from that level. You can't rely on it 100%. I 100% agree with that. It's impossible to rely on guys from the FCS level to come in and that those are going to be the backbone. Those are going to be your transfers. But if you feel really confident, instead of taking, 6 or 7 of those guys, if you take 2 or 3 of those guys and you get the 2 or 3 that you really want, I think there's something to that. I think we're going to see that, by the way, guys. I think we're going to see some of these lower level guys start to, at least a few, matriculate their way into the portal and more into the plans. Because for as many visits as we know about, as much as this stuff is public, even more of it is not public. I mean, very few people even knew that Jaden Rowe had visited K-State until it was over. And then that day he commits. I mean, nobody even knew that he was here until he committed. So, I mean, like, this stuff, there's a lot out there that we're not privy to, that no other outlet is privy to, that they want to keep in-house. So for as much as we think we know about the transfer portal, guys, we don't know jack.
Look,
part of it, and I'll just finish this part. I'm sorry, Fitz, is that some of the FCS guys that you get, I mean, and I think that's been part of what K-State's maybe their issue is when they went out and got these guys from the FCS level, or, even lower per se, maybe group of 5 level. They went to those schools for a reason, and everybody isn't okay. They got there, they were really good, and now they're coming up and you can poach them out of that school. Sometimes those guys went there because that's the level of competition that they should have been playing. Just like we see plenty of guys that come to K-State that shouldn't be at K-State either. It happens everywhere. It's not just K-State. So you have to be very careful when you do stuff like that. I just think we're just at a higher level than having to fill our transfer portal up with a bunch of those guys. We don't have to do that, man. Other schools aren't doing that. I can just you all know I'm a diehard Louisville fan because I grew up there. I'll use them as an example. They're not diving into the FCS level, and they get 15, 20 transfers a year. and they've been pretty daggone competitive. So K-State, I believe, is a level above Louisville, and if they can do it, K-State can do it.
Well, the first step, whether you're a basketball player, a football player, an employee, there's two things you got to be. You got to be reliable. You got to be coachable.
Correct.
And if you're wildly talented and you're lacking those, you're going to be in the portal.
Yep.
If you can't, from day to day in practice, be reliable, and from day to day in practice, be open to coaching and learning and understanding your job better every day, you're not going to stick around. Doesn't matter. Every coach will do that. It's all the same. And Ryan Gilbert, I just realized something as we sit here tonight doing this. Next week, there will either not be the Insiders or Cole and Big B have to take the helm because, brother, 1 week from right now, we're going to be in the air heading for Phoenix.
Wow.
The
I
bowl
thought I had
game.
like the whole month of December off to just do nothing and not worry about football, but that's coming up real soon, isn't it, guys?
1 week away, we will be traveling to Phoenix. And look, this team needs to win this game. They just do. I think what happened last year helped them early in this year. Last year, the bowl game, I think it helped them early this year. And I think for different reasons, they need to go win this game. But I don't know how coaches stay focused on preparing their team when they're bringing in wave after wave of group of players through the portal. It's absolutely incredible what these coaches have to do.
You know, one of the things that they're doing right now is it's basically just mental reps. I believe that they're treating the bowl game like a regular season game, like you're just going through a continuous buys until you get to the week of the game. And then once you get to the week of the game, you know, they'll sprinkle in a little game plan here or there, but they're not diving into the game plan. They're trying to build their roster for next year. I mean, they have to be doing that because if they're not, they're doing themselves a disservice. And we've talked about these bowl games, you know, whether the meaning of bowl games and do they mean a lot? Well, they can. But what's more important, building your roster for next year or beating Rutgers? And I would guess building my roster for next year is more important. It's not that you don't want to win the bowl game. It's not that. But you can't be everywhere. That's the whole thing. There's only 24 hours in a day. And I would guess Coach Kleiman wants his coaches and himself more focused on trying to get the best possible team that he can get for next year. And then when it's time, okay, because there'll be a cutoff and it's like, okay, we're going to go prepare to go play this football game. And then you're going to go do that. But then get right back to it. But I think that's where all their focus is right now, Fitz, is trying to get the best possible team that they can for next year.
And Cole, as a side point to this, and Gills, you can pipe in on this too. With this kind of crunch schedule, if you don't have to make changes to your offensive coordinator or any other position of coaching, you don't do it. Why create more disruption for your program at this point, particularly when it's a bowl game? Like Big B said, would you rather win it? Yeah. Is it better if you win it? Yeah. But is it as damaging as losing at Houston? In no way it is. So I think they're just going to go in, stay the course with what they got, probably focus on things that worked for them. They've got to self-scout better and understand what they do and don't do very well. But I don't think we're going to see anything notably different about this team come bowl time. And in fact, they won't have DJ Giddens running around. So that means they're going to have to try some different things.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Fitz, you bring up different. It's going to look different, and it's going to look like next year. People can sit here and say that, you know, I know K-State has hosting I believe a Louisville transfer at running back here this week. I have to double check on that, but I don't think they're going to add any significant, you know, big time transfer at the running back position. You're going to have Dylan Edwards. You're going to have Joe Jackson. And from a strictly a matchup standpoint, guys, I mean, we'll have plenty of time to talk about this game, but I really like K-State because the speed that K-State possesses. I've watched Rutgers a few times this year. They're a Big Ten team, and that's not a knock on Rutgers because they went 7-5 this year in the Big Ten, but they went 7-5 in the Big Ten. And I think K-State has speed on the outside that Rutgers doesn't have. I think if I'm Connor Riley, I think if I'm that Kansas State coaching staff, I try and display that because I want to get fans excited for next year. That's really what this comes down to. That's why the Pop-Tarts Bowl was a success. Not because they beat NC State, but because fans got to see Avery Johnson. They got to see Avery and DJ. They got to see Avery Johnson throw that touchdown pass to Jace Brown. And how many times did we see that on loop in the offseason? Oh, what can this look like in the future? Just like we're going to see if Avery Johnson and Dylan Edwards combine for 175 rushing yards in this bowl game, what can Avery and Dylan do next year? So I think it's as much about getting the fans excited for the next year as it is anything else. And guys, getting the players excited for next year, because let's not forget, the portal closes December 28th. The game is on December 26th. So if a player plays in the bowl game and decides, you know what, I'm going to enter the portal, they can still do that. I don't think that's going to happen, but it is a possibility. So I think it's about getting these guys and getting the fan base excited for next year, because you know what? People can talk about trending down, trending up. We talked about stocks. You know, are you buying? Are you selling? Are you staying on the Questions podcast? Guys, if they win this game 48-14, there's not a single K-State fan that's going to be like, I hate this team. Well, there might be one, but not very many.
Very true. Ryan Gilbert, you've been quiet. I'm going to give you the floor to wrap up this show. You can talk football, basketball, your love of New York, your favorite sandwich, whatever you want. The floor is yours, Mr. Gilbert.
Oh, favorite sandwich has to be a Permane Bros sandwich from Pittsburgh. But well,
Very good.
One thing with basketball, for any fans that didn't read the piece I did with Ish Massoud, who was a member of that Elite Eight team in 2023, went up on Saturday, I think. I'm not saying you have to agree with everything he said. I'm just saying it's worth the read. With him, he kind of gave his perspective on, as a former player, why it might be premature to give up on a team as we're sitting here in December. But with football, to kind of wrap everything up, I was sitting here just thinking that, yeah, it's kind of tough to balance the portal and playing in a bowl game, but at least you're playing in a bowl game. If you're bringing in a recruit and you're saying, hey, go check out this basketball game, what does that say? So being in a bowl game, that impacts recruiting. Winning, impacts recruiting.
Or what about a stadium that's not built and then you take them to a basketball game?
I wonder what school that is.
I'm not touching it, man. Don't try to sucker me in. And I had Craig over here in the comments trying to sucker me into a uniform conversation. I ain't doing it, man. I'm living a peaceful life right now. I don't want the olds coming after me. We can't change anything. We'll all die. We're going to lose every game. I don't want that in my life. But I'll
get it in my life. People that think that are out of their mind.
I agree.
Kids like uniforms. Period. End of story. These teams that change all these uniforms aren't doing it just to do it. They're doing it because kids want them to do it. They're excited about it. Period. End of story. Stop it with the nonsense. Okay. Kids love it. And it's not just tradition either, because there's no K-State don't have a better tradition than Notre Dame. And if Notre Dame can change their uniforms, why in the hell can't Kansas State? Come on, people. Come on now.
I agree. Well, everyone, I won't be back on this until after the holiday. Have a great Christmas. And just remember this, if you've got the in-laws in town or the kids are stressing you out, at least you're not Ryan Gilbert and have to spend 4 nights in a hotel room over the holidays with me. I fart, I snore, and I use foul language. Other than that, he's going to really enjoy the trip. Thanks for watching The Insiders. We'll be back next week with a lot of coverage. We still got a PowerCat podcast, your questions from Wabash Station to go this week, and lots of daily deliveries. I recorded 3 today. I was an overachiever. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you for watching the K-State Insiders. This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production.